Hey there everyone, Mazarok here, and today I want to go over my Season 4 tank preview tier list. A lot of this information is going to be going by one of the Season 4 tank preview videos that I did, so if you want to check that out, you can go down in the link down below and watch that, as well as the round table between all the top tanks in the world. Now, Lamike, Andy Brew, and Dorky all sat and had a chat. It's like a 2-hour long video. I'll leave the link for that down below as well. I found it very informative. I absolutely love the kind of interaction between all four. They seem to be all pretty good friends, and it was just a really nice talk. It is a little loud and long. It clocks in on about an hour, 45 minutes, but if you are a tank nerd like me, it is worth every second to watch it. But you might be asking yourself, why am I using their tank tier list instead of making my own? Well, first, please like, comment, subscribe. It goes such a long way to helping out the channel. Thank you everybody for 2,600. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. There is a key review link down below if you wish to, if you're looking for tanking tips, I can review one of your videos. There's a Patreon link down below. There's a Twitch link down below if you want to watch me stream. And there, if you want to keep this conversation going, you can always get me on Twitch or on my Discord as well. So you can join the community Discord link down below. So that is the little housekeeping. Let's get into it. So the reason why I'm using their tank tier list to start, because it's not going to be my end tank tier list, and I'm going to get into why and what that is. So, now had Blood DK being kind of like S-God tier with the group. This is, all four of them had decided on where this would place together. They had Prot Warrior in this, so they had named the A Hopium, where they really think it's going to be good. Prot Pal and Brewmaster in B tier, Vengeance in C tier, and Bear in kind of D tier here. That's kind of where they had everything going on, although I think it was more God tier, Prot, I think it was kind of everything was elevated by one, if you so would. And I honestly think their tier list here is accurate. I really, really do. But what I think it's accurate for is the highest of key pushing, right? These are the 4 top tanks in the world. This is how they're going to make their tier list towards what is going to help them get into higher keys, push higher keys, live higher keys, and all of this stuff. And I think this is super accurate, right? When I was doing up my tier list, I pretty much had kind of the same thing with a minor change. I honestly thought Brew was going to be a little bit better. This is kind of where I saw this, and I would have been able to make an argument for Prot Warrior up here. But this is pretty much what I had as well. So there's no point in changing it. They already did it. But the thing is when you stop and realize who these tanks are, right? They're the best tanks in the world. They are playing their specs at the most optimal. They're dishing out the most amount of damage. They're playing everything perfectly. And not every tank is like that, right? Most tanks in the world don't have 4K IO right now. Let's face it, that's kind of the fact. So I wanted to make a tier list more for, us. The people who don't always play perfectly, who go for their 20s and 25s or whatever, and want to push keys, but, are still kind of learning or picking something up. And I wanted to make more of a generalized tier list going on. So I'm going to move some stuff around, and that's what my tier list is going to be here. So starting off, I think Blood DK, in the hands of now Andy, Brew, Lamike, Dorky, I think it is absolutely S tier. The thing is, in the hands of pretty much any other tank, or most other tanks, I can't say any, but most other tanks, right? Because there's a lot of people that play this game. The loss of is going to hit current Blood DKs very hard, because a lot of people started only playing Blood DK this season when it was good, and never really learned how to play it in Season 1 and 2, because they just want to play the best tank at the time, and, okay, perfect, this is how I'm pushing my high keys. I'm playing, Prot Pal, Vengeance, or whatever was met at the time, and they only got used to Blood with the cooldown, and they are going to get hit by fairly hard if you screw up your rotation, you lose Dancing Rune Weapon, you don't have to fall back on for a lot of that CDR cooldown to bring it back into play, and all that fun stuff. If you're a Blood DK player and you've currently have Dancing Rune, and you've played and you have Dancing Rune Weapon up, and you still have 10 seconds left on it, and the cooldown's been set, and you're ready to click it when the moment it comes off again, this is probably going to remain an S tier tank for you. You know how to play it, you're playing it optimally, you know what you're doing. If you're one who If you're a player who Dancing Room Weapon tends to come off when there's like 3 or 4 or 5 seconds left in the cooldown of Dancing Room Weapon, or 10 seconds most times, it's going to be more of an A tier tank for you. That, I think, is going to hit a lot of blood DKs very, very hard. Lastly, I think Brewmaster is going to be a lot better than what I think they kind of... They're not as reliant on but also does really, really help. They really like crit, they really like versatility. Their toolkit is kind of already preset and good for what's going on in Shadowlands Season 4 with the old dungeons and all that fun stuff. So I think, personally, to me, they rated Brewmaster a little low, but I can see why they would rate Brewmaster in B tier for those types of keys that they're doing. But if you're just a tank that's picking up, you want to get your 3k, 3k equivalent, or whatever it is, and you're looking at pushing high keys, but you're not looking at being, ranked number 1, 2, or 3 in the world, I think Brewmaster is going to remain a very solid tank. I don't see them losing as much as, things like that. But, I mean, if you're looking at pushing 31 keys and 32 keys, I mean, let's face it, we're in 2 different worlds, right? Between, 20 to 25 range and 30-31s. Those aren't the same level of keys at all. They're wildly different. Where Brewmaster I could see falling off there, but I think for most people that want to push up 20s and above and kind of really feel in something they're comfortable with, I think Brewmaster is going to be a solid A-tier tank. Prot Warrior. This is one where I've struggled quite a bit to put. Now, they put it in A-tier for the top things. Necrolord Prot Warrior is by far the Covenant of choice. It is insanely tanky. It's all about banner playtime. It has a very high APM, actions per minute. It's a spec that I have literally been playing and having a lot of fun with lately. I've been on my road to 3k IO with it, and just because I kind of ignored it for a long time, but now that I've gotten back into the rhythm of playing Prot Warrior, which anybody that's followed this channel long enough knows, I love my Prot Warrior. I think it's one of the funnest tanks to play. It feels great, feels beefy. And it wasn't until I was in a 21 necrotic wake where my healer, after I think we were like halfway through the first to second boss, like we were in that pathway there, and I took a big hit of damage because I kind of messed up a spell reflect and I didn't really defensive myself properly. And she's like, "Oh, finally I get to heal you." And I'm like, "Wait, what? You haven't healed me?" And she's like, "No, you've been fine." Now, I had Warlock cookies, and I had eaten 3 at that point, but she's like, "You literally haven't needed a heal. You've been fine." Literally, the AoE passive off of the healing, healing ring. I think she was playing Efflorescence, maybe? Yeah, she was on a Resto Druid. So it was literally more than enough, and she didn't need to actually physically touch me. So, this to me was like, oh crap. Okay, Prot Warrior is actually really good when you play it right. It's very difficult to play right, and it's quite funny because like when I go on like a 6-hour stretch of playing Prot Warrior in higher keys, and then I swap to Brewmaster, it is actually or DK, it is actually insane how much easier these 2 specs are in comparison to this one, and how much less focus you need for these ones just to kind of stay alive and do your normal thing. Because Necro, like I said, very high APM. Lots to track, banner upkeep like crazy, playing aggressively. There's a lot of things to go there, but I think if you're willing to put in the work to Prot Warrior, they're going to be an A tier. I think you're going to see them shoot up big time within the meta, and they're not going to be the joke that they've been for the first 3 seasons of Shadowlands. And on top of that, I think they're actually a sleeper pick currently in Season 3. People are starting to realize how good Prot Warrior actually is. In the kind of consensus of kind of we're sticking within the more average, me and you type of deal, I think Prot Paladin and Vengeance are pretty much equal. One of the big problems with Vengeance and super higher keys is how squishy they can be. You mess up your rotation or you take too big of a hit right off the bat, you're just going to get global before you can Spirit Bomb yourself back to health. But that sort of damage isn't really incoming in the 20 to 25 range kind of deal. And I think most people will be able to pick up Vengeance, have an absolute blast in single and AoE, and really go at it. But the problem with me is still their single target. The Fracture buff and the 3% Aura buff just was not enough to help their single target at all. It did help them a little bit, but I think it's like a total of like 3 or 4% single target buff, when honestly, not enough. Losing isn't going to be a super big deal for Vengeance, but they do lose a lot of meta uptime with the cooldown on that going to be remaining at 3 minutes, but you do still get the legendary with the proc and things like that. So if you get lucky, you're still very, very tanky, but if not, then yeah. But prop paladin, I think, is going to be slept on a little bit because you do have options here. You can go with haste, just to blast out damage. You can choose mastery, in for your bounty, and just have stupid amounts of block, but you are going to get diminishing returns on that after a while. But you can also shore up the massive amount of mastery and haste that you're already getting from your gear with versatility. So you've got a lot of options. So I think Paladin, where Paladin's been a little bit more down here, arguably, like, you know, honestly, I bring my Paladin in the 20s, and out of all of these, it has felt the squishiest to me, aside from Bear. But Bear, I think I've only done like a 18 at the highest. I mean, anybody that's known me long enough knows that I don't super play Bear that much, so I can't say that I've pushed many keys. But whenever I bring my Paladin into 20s, I definitely feel squishy. I will admit, I absolutely do feel squishy. Especially squishier than all three of these. But you have lots of ways to bring yourself up. I think Paladin's going to come back, because being able to end a key with like 30% versatility on top of all the mastery you're getting, on top of all the haste that you're getting, you're really going to be able to shore up that defensive, pump out more damage, and be really, really strong. And unfortunately, lastly, we have Bear. Good old Bear. Very fun to play while you are in Incarn, not fun to play while you are outside of Incarn. I found, like, whenever I do keys, especially like Raging Week, I did some this week and things like that, you're just paper outside of Incarn. Like, Iron Fur isn't that great of a stackable defense, and on top of that, losing is going to hit this tank like a brick, because they have their biggest offensive cooldown is tied as their biggest defensive cooldown. It's the same thing at 3 minutes, and losing that buff to not get that cooldown back is going to be terrible. I just don't think Bear's going to feel terrible. They need to rework on Incarn, lower the cooldown maybe, or something of it to kind of build it back up. Honestly, without if they brought Incarn down to like a 2-minute cooldown to bring it more in line to what it was with I think they'd be fine. Like, I think that would work. It's just unfortunate that, you know, they're reliant on a 3-minute cooldown. And before you guys say Prot Warrior, I do want to kind of elaborate a little bit more on Prot Warrior and why I do think they're going to be fantastic. A lot of the biggest problem dungeons for Prot Warrior that have been all expansion long in Shadowlands are going away. Spires of Ascension, Halls of Atonement, Sanguine Depths, all of these big magic hit or disease-ridden dungeons that just wreck Prot Warrior because they don't have a lot to deal with these. They don't have a lot in their kit to self-sustain or deal with these things, are going away. And we're getting a lot more physical-based damage dungeons back, right? Because Legion, the damage there was more physical than it was magic. Even Mechagon. There are some bosses that might be problematic, yes, but we're talking a much more minuscule than every single pull is problematic versus here's a couple of pulls and a couple of bosses that'll be problematic, because every tank has something that they're good at and something that they're bad at, right? That's kind of what it is. But the general toolkit and defensiveness of Prot Warrior is going to be very strong. Warlords of Draenor, mostly physical damage, very little magic. Legion, mostly physical, not as much magic. BFA, we're starting to see a little bit more magic, but not enough to really concern. So I think with everything kind of going up with Prot Warrior, the fact that we're losing a lot of their problematic dungeons, they're actually very strong right now. Every time that I've been running a key with a pug as a Prot Warrior, they're like, holy crap, dude, like, do you even take damage? And it's like, no. On a pull where I'd be taking 20k damage on blood, I'm taking like 7 on my Prot Warrior. Now, yes, I do need a little bit of help to get that back up, but you're just negating so much incoming physical damage where it's those big magical hits that kind of, bother you, but if you have your Ignore Pains properly up, and your Spell Reflect, and your Demo Shout, things worked really, really well to kind of negate that, and you just don't take damage. Really, really fun to see. Honestly, this is kind of what I'm seeing the more generalized tree be at, for kind of pretty much everybody that isn't like 4K IO. This is what I'm thinking is going to be the most likely tier list. We are going to review this in a few months. We're going to go down the road. We'll review this to see how right or wrong I was, and we'll have fun there. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. Have yourselves a good day. What do you think, and what are you planning on maining in Season 4?